Hey guys, SEMPHIS here with another rant. So I just wanted to kind of talk about a couple things I see on the forums, Reddit, HLTV, Twitch chat. People always making excuses for why they suck. Oh, I'd be a pro if I didn't have to go to school. I'd be a pro if I didn't have to work. I'd be a pro if my friends were on a pro team because of politics. There's all these excuses that people like to make that for the reason why they're not better or they would never got a chance or whatever BS they can come up with to make themselves feel better. Now, for the vast majority of pros, they were working or they did go to school and they still found time to game on the side and still get to a good enough level to play professionally. So it's obviously not holding everyone back, but there's this small group of people that I see getting larger and larger where they feel like they're just kind of owed something, like, oh, they should just get a chance, because they got good stats or because they have good work ethic or attitude or whatever reason they come up with in their head for why someone should just magically message them and have them join their team. And I'll just want to say that that's probably not going to happen. From my experience, you have to work really hard in Counter-Strike to get noticed. And it's very difficult at the start because you're competing with thousands upon thousands of other people that are also trying to go pro or get noticed and play on a better team. Now, as more money gets in the game, more players, it becomes more and more difficult, right? Especially as the scene gets more stabilized. Obviously, if the game is newer, it's easier to get into, right? But I just want to say that none of these things make it impossible. If you have a job, you can still go pro. If you go to school, you can still go pro. None of these things are going to be the direct reason you didn't, unless you're just not talented or don't work hard. I mean, sometimes that's just at the end of the day, you got to be honest with yourself, and maybe you're just not good enough to go pro. And in that case, there's other roles you can take. There's analyst roles, there's coaching roles, there's management stuff. There's obviously other ways you can stay in esports if you truly do love it, because I would hate to see someone that's super passionate just feel like, oh, maybe I don't have it and I have to just quit, because there's a lot of people that make really good money and have really good careers and they never went pro. So maybe they just stream on Twitch and have a small following, and it gets bigger over time. So anyways, my main point is I want to go over some of the things that I did to go pro and some of the, I don't want to call them hardships, but sacrifices I made, and just so people can kind of realize what it can take to become, a professional player at a high level. So I started in 2005. I wouldn't really classify myself as going pro until maybe 2010-ish, but again, that was CS 1.6. We didn't get a salary, so it's hard to even say we were pro. We were just kind of the best team in North America. We would win all the local lands we went to, all the ESCA lands, that kind of thing. So, when I first started playing, it was just for fun. But what I would always do is I would try to go to the local lands near me. So it didn't matter if I thought I was going to win or not. There's this huge tendency for players to be like, oh, I don't want to go to this SoCal land. I don't want to go to the local land because I'm not going to win, or this team's going to win, or these two teams are better than everyone. It's cool, man. You're just never going to go to a local land. You're never going to get any experience on land, meet people, have fun, get noticed, because those things all happen at local lands. You have a lot of fun. And you love the game, right? So why not go play in the best conditions on land? So those type of things, as I see people make those excuses all the time, and you just got to go and have fun, man. And maybe you upset a team. Some of these teams that are going there that you think are super sick, they might do some drugs, get drunk because they're cocky, and then they're off, and you can take the W off them. So anyways, my main point is I would go to as many local lands as I could. I'd go to Vancouver, I'd go to Seattle, I would take buses to get there, and eventually the local land scene, I kind of rose to the top, right? So I got picked up by the best team in the Northwest region, but again, it was I knew we were kind of never going to get much past that. The people just weren't dedicated enough to go to the next level on that team, so I kind of made a roster that I thought was going to be a little bit more serious in terms of going to qualifiers across the country to qualify for bigger lands. So in 2009, I took a 72-hour bus ride to Toronto. Okay, 72 hours in a bus. While I was driving across the country, And I've seen all of Canada now, and it's not worth the 72 hours in a bus. Trust me, it was one of the most miserable experiences. You cannot sleep on a 72-hour bus ride. You stop every hour on the hour. There's drug addicts in there. People, oh man, it's not fun. It's not fun. Anyways, so on that trip there, all the other teams are just playing. They're just practicing. So like you can make the excuse like, oh well, you know, they have a giant advantage. That's not like what we did. We didn't make excuses, right? We're just going to go there and we're going to win. So when we get there, we get the hotel, we check in, and we eventually make it to the finals because we were pretty good, but a lot of people thought we were online. We weren't going to be as good on land. And I remember we got 12-3'd on T-side Tuscan. And like that sucks, you know, because like it's third map in the series to win and qualify for the event in China, which was a pretty big deal at the time because I'd never been to an international LAN. And I just remember being like, dude, like, did I just waste all my time, like, coming to this LAN, like, 72-hour bus ride just to go home? Like, and I was like, no, we can fucking do this. And I kind of just, like, snapped out of it. And I was the caller at the time, and I was pretty good. So I called a really good T-half. We 13-0'd them, and we made, you know, the LAN. We won a monitor, 120 hertz monitor back then, LCD, pretty sick. I know. And then I bought a flight home, and I did not take that 72-hour bus ride back. So that was like the first experience of like doing something that a lot of people probably wouldn't do. Like most people probably wouldn't take a 72-hour bus ride to a LAN that they didn't think they were like guaranteed to win, because we weren't guaranteed to win it. Like we were definitely in the running to win it, but that's like kind of a big risk, right? And we didn't have a lot of money at the time. You know, I was working a part-time job at a grocery store, stocking shelves at night. So, you know, that it was like supplemental income to play CS, right? Just like winning the local lands, $1,000 here or whatever. Now, after that, I had this random gallstones and I had to get a surgery and stuff. So we couldn't actually practice before I went to China, which sucked. So we kind of went there and just got owned. We weren't going to do well, to be honest, anyways, but we played versus Fallen and FNX and NAC and stuff. So that was cool because that was when I first met those guys, and they're always been super nice. And they're another example of people that just have always fought for it in Counter-Strike. They haven't really used excuses like, oh, we live in Brazil. Like, they're just always trying like 100% every round. They just never give up, right? So after that, that team kind of disbanded. Because, you know, when you're not really sponsored or salary, that happens a lot. Teams just kind of like fade in and out. And then I was like, okay, I got to play with Americans. So I teamed up with like Sean Gares and some other people. And eventually, fast forward to like, I don't know, 2011, we picked up Swag, who was 13, prodigy of the game. And then we got a couple other players that you guys probably don't know. So it was me, Sean, Swag, Sobo, and Elliot, who was like my friend from Vancouver. And we just grinded all day, man. Like, we had people that just had all the same goals, all the same values, and the same kind of like work ethic, and we just played. And now, one of the things I want to say is, like, I wasn't the caller. Sean was the caller, right? But Sean was in school. So Sean didn't have a ton of time. So he's got work, you know, school. He's got like exams, you know, homework, that kind of stuff. So he'd always be on for practice. But, you know, maybe we play from like 5 p.m. to like 8 or 9 or something. So it's like, you know, like 4 or 5 hours. Good amount of time, but nothing crazy. And then, you know, he's got to finish, you know, schoolwork and go to sleep and stuff like that, right? So what I would do is I'd watch all the demos because I was a nerd, and I'd bring strats and setups to the team. So I'm not like sitting there like a lot of people do, and I'm like, wow, we need better strats. We need more setups. Like, go and do it yourself. You know, like, so many people are so fucking lazy. Like, if there's a problem on your team and your IGL isn't doing something, you can help them. You know, you don't have to just sit there crying about it. You know, like, if the B Inferno site sucks and they lose it every round, maybe bring them some setups. You know, like, it's not always fair. Like, you might be, oh, well, that's their job. Well, then just continue losing, you know, because like sometimes the lower level, you're not going to have people that have the same goals as you, but you still need them to win. You know, so it's like, sometimes you just got to go out of your way and do extra work, and it's going to help you. It'll benefit you, because those people, when they get asked about you, are going to be like, oh yeah, this guy's a hard worker. He's always bringing setups and strats. He's always helping with this and that and that, and that matters. People like people that do that kind of stuff on teams, right? So eventually we kind of grinded our way to the top of like the NA scene, and basically Fraud, Storm, and all those guys, they just quit the game because they Deborn and Irakonji, because they realized that there's just no way they would ever beat us. Like, we were playing 5-6 hours every day, grinding hard, and we were just better than them straight up. Like they can say whatever they want, but they would never have beat us. They could play as much as us, it wouldn't have mattered. Me and Brax, we were demons back then, like, so good. Anyways, so then we picked up Jordan and nothing. And basically from there, I got kind of frustrated because Jordan was coming from EG, where he got a salary. He was like the only salaried NA team at the time, $1,500 US a month, which isn't a lot. Now he's making zero because we're not getting salary. But I'm still like, love Counter-Strike, haven't been in any big tournaments, haven't won anything big, and I'm just like still zoned in. So like, Jordan wants to go to a concert or something, I'm pissed. I'm like, why does this guy not want to practice 24/7? And like, it would annoy me because like, I just wanted to play and grind so much. And it was a little bit frustrating. But obviously, like, there's not much you can do about that, right? Like, until you're salaried and everything, you're always going to have people that maybe aren't going to see eye to eye. And like, I don't really blame Jordan for that, but it's just like, at the time, I just didn't understand why someone didn't want to play Counter-Strike literally all day, every day, and do nothing else. So during this time, I didn't party. I didn't do anything. I just played Counter-Strike 24/7, and I just invested my entire life in this thing. I still had a part-time job and went to school and stuff like that, but like, everything was dedicated towards Counter-Strike. Like, every moment of my day was thinking about Counter-Strike. So it's obviously not super healthy, but like, it's very good if you want to go pro. So then CSGO came out, and we kind of teamed up. The team kind of split up. Brax wanted to play with some of his friends. Jordan went and kind of played with Brax. And then me and Sean kind of like teamed up with Dazed, TCK, and Pinecone at the time, and later got Frost. Anyways, so we made that team, and like, again, it was just like, me and Sean sucked. We had like 50 FPS. When CSGO came out, we had the old CS 1.6 computers that could be run on, you could run CS 1.6 on a phone nowadays, I'm pretty sure. And so we were like really bad, and Daisy was like messaging Hiko like, yo, like, are you sure you want to play with these guys? They suck. Then eventually our new PCs came, and like, we started playing better. But we just grinded a lot, right? So like, we all have, again, same mindset, like, we'd all be grinding, like, and then I had a team of like, what I felt like was a bunch of other versions of me. So besides Sean and Hiko, like, Sean still had some school stuff, and Hiko worked at a Tombstone, I don't want to say factory place that, like, you write the the messages and the name and the date and stuff on the tombstone. And a funny story about that, we used to make him stay up till like 1 a.m. to scrim his time, and he'd go to work so tired that he'd misspell some of the writing on tombstone. So then he had to go to bed earlier because he got in trouble. So I always thought that was funny. But anyways, so we just grind. So what we do is we practice. We're degenerates, so we wake up like 4 p.m., scrim till like midnight, and then we'd like watch shows together. We'd watch like Breaking Bad or like, Game of Thrones or whatever was coming out at the time. I can't remember. We'd watch that together, and then we just deathmatch and theory craft, strats and stuff of the game. We were just fucking nerds, dude. Like literally all we do is like focus on Counter-Strike, DM for 2 hours, go in a server, talk about smokes, find new lineups, because the game was new, right? And we just grinded so hard, and eventually that team kind of like imploded just because of like personality clashes with like me and Daze, and some people wanted to play with some people wanted to play others. But my point is, like, we just grinded so hard, and that's like kind of how we got to be the best in NA. Like, we went to the first ESWC, we beat some European teams, like we 16-0'd a Brazilian team at that first event. Like, we were pretty good. Like, we weren't like the best team in the world, but we were trying, and we played a lot. So like, we definitely like earned our place as like the number one team in NA just by like how relentless we were on playing a lot. And there's other players on other teams that were really good. Like Skadoodle was there owning everyone. There was like the dynamic guys like AZK and Adren and stuff. But I just don't think anyone could compete with the amount of like effort we were putting in at the time. Not that they weren't putting in effort, but I just think we took it to like the next level, right? So like at this point, we're still not salaried. We have no money every month. We literally just do this because we love the game. And I think that's like the difference between people that actually like I don't think it's like a great idea to like make your goal to go pro at a game because you want money. Like there's much better ventures in life that you could do than to like just decide, hey guys, I'm going to go play Counter-Strike or Valorant and make money. Like, yeah, it sounds cool, but like trust me, at a high level, eventually it's not fun anymore. Like not in the way that like just playing pugs when you're new to a game is. Like eventually it becomes into work, right? So like you got to do demo review, you got to like watch back your matches of yourself, of other teams. You got to do prep time, you got to do server work. There's a lot of things you got to do. You got media days, you got travel days. There's a lot of things that eventually become kind of tedious. And like at the start, you might be, oh, I love this. But like just telling you, after a couple years, like it's not always, the most fun thing in the world. And then maybe you wouldn't prefer doing that if you didn't love the game. Like if you love the game and you love competing, that's all worth it, 100%. But if you're doing it purely for money, I think eventually you're not going to be able to continue doing it at a high level. I think it just becomes too tedious, and eventually get burnt out. So again, not salaried or anything, and then eventually, thankfully we make a couple new rosters and we get on C9, get some salary, do well at a major, get a bigger salary, and then from there, CS kind of just blew up, and like salaries were a lot easier to come by. You could be on like a top 10 team at NA and make okay money. At the time, at least, there was a lot of money in CS. But like, think about that, man. Like that's from like 2009-ish till 2014 that I didn't make any money, like salary wise. Like sure, we win some prize money, but prize money's not that much, right? Like maybe you get 2K here, maybe 5K here if you're lucky, type thing. But again, like it's not a lot. So it's like you're doing that because you love it. And like these days I have people like they just like they've never been on a pro team, and they just expect like 5K a month, all travel expenses and everything paid for. And I'm just so confused. Like, how do you think you'd... Sorry, boys, there's a very loud truck that went by, so I paused it and we'll start again. So my point is that I find people make too many excuses. They don't want to put enough of the responsibility on themselves. If you want to be good, if you truly want to make it to become a professional, there's a lot of more effort you can put in. And if you're not doing all the right things, like I would go to tournaments, people would go to strip clubs, I wouldn't go. People would go to the hotel bar and have drinks, I wouldn't go. My friends at home would ask me to go to a party, I wouldn't go. I'm not saying that you have to be a hermit like I was. If you're capable of going to a party and having one drink and going home, that's great. But I think a lot of people don't really have that willpower. People want to go to concerts. They want to go on hikes for the weekend with their girlfriend or with their friends. And like a lot of these things, well, are totally valid things to want to do. You can't always do them if your goal is to become a professional player and try to put all your effort into one goal, especially as you're rising. Like at the start, if you're just playing for fun, you shouldn't be an open and not hanging out with your friends, right? So that's not what I'm saying, but I more mean like when you're right under the pro level and you're trying to make that jump up, for example, if you're someone that is complaining like, oh, work is holding me back, like I can't play as much as these other guys because, I have to work a full-time job, I have rent, blah, blah. Maybe what you should do in this scenario, and I've known people have done this, is you work for a year or two, you save up some money, and then you give yourself an allotted time to go pro. You say, all right, I have enough money to survive for 6 months. Or are you going to move back home with your parents or something like that and just be like, hey guys, like I have this dream. I'll give you guys a little bit of rent money, but I just really want to focus on Counter-Strike for a couple months here. And if I don't make it, I'm going to go back to school or I'm going to continue with my career, whatever, right? And that way, at least you're giving 100% and you kind of get rid of the excuses, but you're not putting all your eggs in one basket because realistically, most people are not going to go pro, right? Most people are not going to make a great living playing video games, right? It's kind of the same thing with like and even like bodybuilding or something, right? Like only a select percent of people really even make it to the top, right? It's like any professional sport. There's not like millions of people that make a ton of money off of it, right? So you just got to like kind of decide how much you're willing to like kind of sacrifice, and then do that, and then be realistic with yourself and call it when it's time to call it. Like if you're 34 years old and you've never made it pro yet, like you're probably not making it pro. Like, prove me wrong. That's great. But like, you got Ponalone and some of these players that are still playing in an older age that are still very, very skilled. I don't think age is like the main reason people don't go pro, but I definitely think like if you've been trying for a long time, like sometimes you got to call it, like there's guys that, they'll be competing in bodybuilding for 15 years. They never win a regional show. They never win a national show. And they just still want their pro card, and it's really expensive. It's really hard on the body, and they're just delusional. Like with even for me, like I want to try to get a pro card in bodybuilding. I think it would be fun to be like, oh, I'm a pro bodybuilder and I was a pro gamer, that kind of stuff. I just think it's just be funny, and just kind of cool thing to be able to say that I did. But I also have an obsessive personality, right? Like I'm like a dog with a bone with anything. So it's like when I get into something, I have a hard time not putting everything into that and kind of like neglecting other stuff in my life. But but even for me, it's like if I do another show and I don't do well after everything that I've done, I'll probably call it. Like not that I won't be into fitness and still like love working out. Like I love working out, but like I'm not gonna put as much effort into it forever. Like I'm 35 now, so it's like you just gotta be realistic with yourself. Put limits when you're done. Try to allot your time. Don't drop out of school or any of these things. You don't have to do that to go pro, but at the end of the day, like you have to think why, like, do you deserve it? Like if the other guy that you're playing versus that went pro was doing everything right, going to sleep on time, not partying, not doing drugs, not drinking, DMing for 2 hours a day, watching 2 hours of demos a day, doing all of the things that they need to do, being a good teammate, communicating properly, watching interviews, just kind of like obsessing about the game, watching every big tournament, just like always keeping up with the meta. If they're doing everything right, if they're like giving, if they're bleeding for this game, why do you deserve it more than them? If you're not doing that, like, why do you deserve it? And that's the part that kind of frustrates me. And it's like, I played on teams with like Automatic and other players, and they're really hard workers. And that's the number one thing that annoys them. It's when other people aren't working hard. It's not because they suck. Like, I would say that teammates will be more kind to you if you underperform, if you're trying really hard. Like, if you're playing 10 hours a day and watching demos and always bringing new stuff to prac and everything, and you're underperforming for a month or two, most teammates are going to let it slide because they know that you're trying really hard. And eventually, yeah, like if you don't step up your game and start performing, you're going to get cut. That's just competitive anything, really. But, but if you're sitting there like, oh, I'm underperforming, and then you don't play more, or you're playing like Valorant on the side, that's going to trigger people. That's going to piss them off, and then they're going to want to cut you right away. So, yeah, end of the day, like, I'm just saying, like, you got to be realistic with yourself. You got to put in the effort, and you can't expect things to just be given to you, And at the end of the day, you can definitely become a pro if you do everything right, if you have the talent for it. But I think a lot of people are just a little bit delusional, and they think they're trying a lot harder than they are. And you just got to be honest with yourself. Like, am I doing everything right? Because for the most part, you're not. Like, if you're sitting here telling me you're doing everything right, I probably don't even believe you. Like, because you can always do something more, right? You always do a little bit more, but you get what I'm saying. So, anyways, that's my little rant. It's raining now. I gotta go back inside and hide.